happen.
I don't, because they are already here.
They just don't, they can't get away from this conservation craze.
Anybody all set here?
It's pretty normal for people to get into it, though.
Yeah, I
In
know.
California, it was
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
unfair,
what's up with that?
and it really screwed up a lot of things.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
A little bit of noise. Good evening, I'm gonna call the Milton Planning Board meeting of January 7th to order. Second thing on the agenda is public comment. At this time, anybody who'd like to make a comment on anything but what's on the agenda, feel free to speak. Not hearing any? We'll move on to number 3, voluntary merger. Roland Norman, tax map 33, lots 123, 121 and 123, located on 59 and 65 Falcon Drive. I have the paperwork here. Any questions? Not hearing any. I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept and authorize the chair and vice chair to sign the merger.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
We have a second, so,
I'll second.
Second?
okay. Just for the record. so.
Take care of that after. Okay, number 4 on the agenda, continued public hearing for real estate advisors, Walter Cheney, tax map 42, lot 168, 460 White Mountain Highway. The applicant is requesting for a change of condition 3 of the planning board's decision made on October 15, 2019 at their regular scheduled meeting for the renovation of one of the existing building to create 3 one-bedroom apartments and 1 two-bedroom apartments. Mr. Cheney.
He just stepped out to the car, he's gonna come right
Okay.
back, Mr. Chairman.
There he is.
You want to do that? Thank you, sir. Walter, present your case.
You ready for me?
We read the whole thing and you walked out the door.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't think I was reading that bad.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was looking. I'll get up here. Hey, Christ, you're ready for me already. Hey, well, what about public comments? Can I make a comment?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, you missed that too?
Yeah, I missed that too.
Okay, have the public comment.
Okay, I can have it back. I was wondering, looking to get reconfirmed on Northeast Pond Road, which isn't on the agenda, on a number of the planning board members are going to get off in March, at least. I believe 2 members get off. And so I had a 5-2 vote the last time I was here that we were talking about Northeast Pond Road. And I didn't know whether, when we went from the 3-story to and we denied the 4-story, if that made any difference to the no votes. In other words, would that change any of the no votes' opinions on whether they thought the multifamily out there would be a good thing? You know, I so strongly believe that it's a good thing because it protects the 45 acres out of 50 acres of the land, and I think it's, whether the neighbors think it's good or not, I totally believe it's the best thing that could happen out there, to have all that, with that, all that congestion out there, drop in there and confine it to the 5 acres and have all that open space amongst everybody. I just see it as the plus. So my question is, does any of that, the 2 no votes, does any of them think that changes any of their mind, and now that it can only be 3 stories?
I don't think this is really appropriate time to have this type of
No,
discussion
that's-
during public comment, so
No.
I don't think it's really relevant.
Something for us to think about,
Okay, fine.
okay?
Okay. All right, so now I'm on for number 2.
That's, yep,
uh, which is to discuss the zoning on Elm Street.
nope, this is a continued public hearing for the fire station.
Okay,
That's what we're discussing.
okay. And what I would like, I met with the selectmen, and the selectmen voted that they liked the idea of having 4 apartments instead of 3 apartments and not have the commercial space. So I believe I'm here tonight for the planning board to approve, if they so choose, having 4 apartments instead of 3 apartments and 1 commercial slot.
Okay, any comments or questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
The applicant is here tonight to request that you amend your site plan approval.
yep.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Genie? Not hearing any. I'll ask for a motion to amend the site plan to make this 4 units, not 3.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
I have a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll just comment that that is what the majority of the Board of Selectmen agreed to.
Oh,
But my personal opinion is I think the town was sold on something different and the voters chose who's in those seats and they voted on, made a decision, so here we are. And everything that's being done here is within zoning, so can't say no just because I don't agree with it. If they just stay in the zoning,
I'd like
Of
to
the
pull
town.
mine back then, my second back. Can I do that? Because I don't know what the rest of you guys think about this.
Well, let's, the second one, it's, anybody can make a comment on it right now.
Okay.
Okay, it's open
Okay.
to anybody here on the board,
Okay.
so they can make this comment if they like. Any more comments or questions?
So we approved 3?
3 and 1 commercial?
Hmm?
It wasn't it 3 and 1 commercial?
3 in a commercial.
Yeah,
Now let's go to no commercial.
no commercial.
right, because if we go back, when this was presented to the board, the planning board, it was within zoning requirements, but I brought up the fact that the original plan that was presented to the Board of Selectmen when this was sold to this individual, we were told that it was going to be used as commercial use, and that had changed. So the applicant, on their own will, took it upon themselves to go meet with the Board of Selectmen and said that he would do what the Board of Selectmen wanted. And the Board of Selectmen basically changed their minds from what they originally said they wanted when the property was sold. The majority of the Board of Selectmen. Let me
Gotcha.
rephrase that.
Oh,
Not all.
okay, okay, that's what
So,
I got you.
majority wins.
Bruce, I'm
Well, I
sorry.
have a comment as your planner, and that is that you do not have to do the bidding of the Board of Selectmen. This is purely a planning board decision as to whether you want to amend the site plan that you approved back in October. However, don't let it get lost that the applicant presented you a site plan that showed 4 dwelling units in it. So it was the board itself that changed that because of what Ryan had said about what he understood the agreement to be when the town sold the old fire station to Mr. Cheney. The final thing that I would say is that it might help you make up your minds on this one is I suggest that you ask Mr. Cheney if you vote to still have an 800 to 1,000 square foot commercial space with a separate access, does he have a commercial use ready to go in that space? I think that's an important question to ask. It might help you make up your minds.
I definitely do not have any commercial use to go in there. And my opinions on the commercial use for Milton is there isn't any. I think that it's a crying shame that the lot adjacent to me is on the market for $30,000. If there was any demand for any kind of commercial use, any kind, it's got water and sewer, somebody would buy that and make something out of that. The electrical place that was the little takeout or lunch thing or whatever, coffee thing, up the street, that's been on the market for a year or two, and nobody is looking at that, nobody's buying that. I see that there's no need of any kind of commercial use in town, none, zero. And I perceive that the apartments, if we can build a base for the apartments and we can rent them and make them desirable, I see that the apartments will give us a population that then the commercial will come next. That's how it works. The commercial, if there's no people here, there's gonna be no interest or need for the commercial. So.
Any more quick, yep, Brian?
I don't want to get in a back and forth on this, but I also think that it's important for everybody to understand that you're a developer that does not ever go after commercial property, as you previously have stated to this board and other boards when you've done presentations. So you're always looking for more of the apartment and that type of development. So
Absolutely. When we
you're
first
not a commercial, you're not into commercial real estate.
Yeah, at the fire station, we considered doing the storage, which would be a commercial use. And then we changed our mind along the way. And then I got upset when you thought I went back on my word. And so I was adamant we were gonna have any commercial that, I'd go back and make it a storage thing. Because my word is my bond, and it's important to me personally. And so I was very upset that night that it was implied that I had gone against what I didn't realize that, okay? Yeah, that was a misunderstanding on my part.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, what is the position of the board on the participation of alternates in this discussion, as one who was part of the earlier discussion on this? The opinion varies as whether alternates when the board is full are not needed, or alternates may, even though the board is full, participate in the discussion but have no vote. What does the chair wish?
Would the board allow Larry to speak on this?
Absolutely.
Since there is my comfortable chair here, I will and sit thin. There has been, for the last 10 to 15 years, a continued discussion about the tension between the transportation limitations of Main Street in Milton, the extreme sharp rise of the cliff hillside behind, how we're cramped in by the railroad, cramped in by the river, and cramped in by Route 125 itself. Even so, there had been an attempt to bring commercial development, and the great financial depression of 2008 took close to 6 years before Dollar General, which is a bottom feeder, and Dunkin' Donuts, which is a stomach feeder, finally came to town.
Mm-hmm.
There is still the massive problems of development on the east side of Main Street because of the limitations imposed by DOT. There is greatly restricted parking for those apartment houses that do exist. The topography rises steep on Steeple Street. If I remember correctly, the property was advertised as a commercial property, and commercial real estate was involved in its final purchase. The purchase was complicated by the fact that clear and usable title of the town did not exist. I happen to know from personal conversation that there was a local resident who operates a local business in Rochester who wanted to buy that building because of its massive concrete floors and use it explicitly for a commercial operation and bring his business and the associated traffic into downtown Milton. That is the background of this property as a commercial property. The question is well put as to whether or not this property as full apartments is the kind of high traffic base that will bring commercial properties into the town and provide a commercial base of small businesses. Because the second and third questions become what businesses, what population base, given the hot real estate market in residential in the seacoast generally, which is pushing up residential values in Milton. From that point of view, it makes excellent financial sense to have a complete residential property, and this residential property is blessed with parking that the other apartments do not have. On that basis, it's good. Whether or not $2,500 and $3,000 apartments for full amenities and 5-minute access to the Spalding are something that the resident population already here in Milton can afford is an open question. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Boyers, may I, as a public hearing, be recognized?
Might as well, we're letting everybody
Thank
else
you.
go with
Just
3
real
people,
quickly,
so.
And thank you, Mr. Brown, for your comments. Phil Bean, 10 Hopper Road, Milton Mills. This pursuit by the applicant is perfectly consistent with the master plan, 2.7 housing, to quote it, to allow for a range of housing opportunities in a manner that protects and enhances Milton's rural and agricultural character, while providing housing to the elderly and lower income residents. Implementation strategies, again, this is from the Milton Master Plan. Review the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations for the ability to support this goal, considering allowing the sensitive conversion, I emphasize, of abandoned commercial properties, which is a municipal platform, and this village zoning districts to the housing for the elderly and other uses. The town planner is exactly right. The selectmen have really no, they can offer their opinions, but they have no influence on this board. And in terms of commercial uses, George and Sharon, formerly the Spinellis, had a restaurant here. There was a commercial up on the hill. That has now been converted to fully residential. The laundromat on the hill 30 years ago was a mixed commercial and residential, could not sustain it. 95% of the people in this town get in their cars and go out of town to work. And finally, when you look for apartments in Milton Mills, there are none. There's 3 or 4. There's no housing for young people to live in. There's virtually no housing that exists for young folks. It's a priority of the governors, it's a priority of the legislature. I served up there last term, and the board should concur with the master plan, their own opinions, the town planner, and this applicant's good efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more? Not hearing anything, we've had the second. All those in favor of amending the site plan? Amending the site plan?
Aye.
Opposed? Done.
You good? Hey, no, but
Oh, you're number 5 too.
okay, I'm on the agenda for Elm Street,
Yes.
okay? And,
This is just a conceptual, there's no plans or anything to do with this. This is just,
we've been asking the board to change the zoning in Elm Street from the front part of its zone high density, the first 200 feet, and then the back part is zoned rural. And I'd like to see it all zoned high density. And so, this is the Spalding Turnpike up here. The green is our property. And I think all of this should be high density, not just my property. And I've been trying to get the board to promote that and put it to the voters. It's a unique opportunity in that there's water and sewer available out there. You're 1 minute off the highway. You abut the highway, so, you know, it's a good place to put the high density. And if that was zoned with water and sewer, where you could do apartments, single family, multifamily, total mix, you could, and the piece of paper I went to get when couldn't find, you know, it shows that the over 65 population in New Hampshire this year will be over 20% of the population in the state of New Hampshire. And so between the medical field and the developers like myself that are looking at it, we see a tidal wave of people coming that want to downsize and be living in 1,300 square feet, call it 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. They no longer want the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square foot houses. They don't want the stairs. They want to be on one floor, but they still want the 2-car garage. There's things that they want. We think anyone that provides that in a good location, and I happen to believe Milton's in a perfect location. We're an hour to North Conway. We're a half hour from Portsmouth. So I just think, and if this was all restricted 55 and older, I'd be all in favor of it, because that's going to be the only customer. Okay, and I think anyone that can create a community, what I've found is at that age they want a community. So if you can create a community, and they'll come. So if I could get the zoning out there, I would do something for the elderly, and like I say, I don't mind it being restricted to the elderly, but I like the diversity. I'd like to do the not only the single family but the multifamily. And if we had the water and sewer in that location, I think we could do a great job. So the first thing would be to get the zoning changed, and then we come back to the planning board with each plan, what we're gonna do, how it's gonna be, and no matter how many units were approved, you have to understand, it will take 20, 30 years for it to materialize. It's not gonna happen overnight. All of these projects that I've gotten approved in other towns, I got 350 apartments in Newmarket approved 33 years ago. My son built the last building last year. 33 years later, for those 350 units to actually be built, okay? But they're a cash cow to the town now. Sure, the first units we built for $50,000 a unit, and now they're $110,000, $120,000 a unit. So, but this is my vision, and I've been asking the planning board, so I thought I'd come. I was supposed to be here a month ago, and I apologized that I wasn't here, but to see if you would support, and you put it on the ballot. I'm not gonna go out and get a petition and go through all that. If you, as the planners of the town, don't see this as a good thing for the town, then you can just tell me that and I can go home. And I'm just giving you my vision. We own the land. We would like to do something positive with it. The town certainly thought there was an advantage in high density out there because they zoned the first 200 feet. It's just in this particular situation, the first 200 feet doesn't give me much of anything to deal with the water and sewer, the cost of the water and sewer. And so I just sort of feel that my hands are tied, and it'd be such a waste to use that property as use it up as rural land. That's my 2 cents. So now I'm interested if you would consider figuring out how to put it on the ballot to vote on it and let the voters vote.
Well, I know, first off, I mean, we've for this year, for anything to go on a ballot for a warrant article for zoning change, it's too late. We don't have the
Okay.
time.
And,
It's gonna be,
no,
the earliest anything could be considered would be next year.
okay, all right. And when I missed the December meeting, I wondered if that was the case. So, though it's a moot
But
point.
I think, and not necessarily just for your property, but if the board wants to really consider a zoning change in the future, it really needs to
Yeah.
start probably in the January, February, or after March, when the,
Yeah.
right after March, right
See
after
who's
the
here, yeah.
elections. Because it takes a lot of time, and if it's done right, it should take a lot of research and
I mean, is there any feeling whether the board would take that and make a serious commitment to decide whether it should or shouldn't be for next year?
Go ahead.
I guess with what you were talking about, I don't know if I'm missing something here, where you're saying that you feel there's a tidal wave of 65
Yeah,
plus
yeah.
housing needed, and then also you said that for anything to materialize or anything to be built, it's 20 to 30 years. So if there's 65 now, that puts them 85 to 95
Yeah, but
when
they're
the
gonna keep
housing's
coming.
built.
Yeah.
And is that, I mean, these tidal waves change, so I'm a little confused on
Well,
your theory here, because
By 2050, they're projecting much higher than 25%. And we're seeing numbers that get to 50 to 60% of the population will be.
It's becoming a retirement state.
And that's because a lot of young people are escaping.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
would you allow me to participate in this discussion?
Oh, most certainly, sir.
Here's what I have to say really quickly. The page 78 of your Land Use and Economic Development Master Plan chapter that you worked on in 2017 has a number of zoning and land use recommendations in it. One of the recommendations for the high-density residential says this: this district should be expanded adjacent to villages where expansion of utilities is feasible. Prepare feasibility analyses for utilities and amend regulations to require upgrade by the developers. Now, I then call your attention to the draft work plan that's in front of you on your desks. Number 5 on your work plan, which proposed for you this year, says develop new zoning districts for zoning amendment. You put those two things together,
I was a
I'm
month
trying
too
to nudge
late.
you in the direction that Mr. Cheney is. It's not often that I agree with Mr. Cheney, but I do agree with him in this regard, that really the goal for Milton, especially around its villages, is a couple of things. One, to revitalize and densify the villages, because you don't want to have that type of development out on the west side of the turnpike. And two, it isn't just 55 and older and 65 and older. What we really need is an influx of new folks coming in, and by new I mean we need age diversity. Not just diversity in the types of housing, but we need age diversity. We need to have some of the older people come here, but we also need to have younger people come here. So the housing offerings that Walter is offering really should run the gamut for younger folks who might also take the jobs that begin to spring up here to take care of some of the older folks. And
Absolutely.
there's a dynamic here that won't start until you hit that tipping point. And the tipping point does begin with working on densifying and revitalizing your villages. So I'm on board with this, and I hope that the planning board works on this throughout the year.
And my last comment is, that I'm interested in, what does the planning board think about, and I don't know if anybody's seen it, if they've looked at the new Riverwoods in Durham that's being built. But there's about 150 units that sold out in 30 days. And believe it or not, I have it on the planning board, my head and playing around with, trying to do that here in Milton. So I'm interested in what the board thinks of having an assisted living facility in town.
I think the board would be very acceptable myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
That, what he's talking in Riverwoods is 55 and older.
Yeah.
And when they start at 350,000,
Oh, yeah, it's out of
they end
sight.
up at 900,000.
And they sold out in 30 days.
Sold out 30 days before completion,
Before completion.
and you still have to pay a monthly fee to live there, above and beyond the purchase of it for assisted living care.
Goodness.
And it's sold out, like you said, within 30 days. Larry?
I believe that the increase in rate in Durham is 2.3%, and the present tax rate in Durham is $26.83.
Damn college kids. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Go there.
You getting there?
Uh-huh. Oh,
We're
5 years.
moving right along here.
You know, 30 years ago, I was in Korea.
We got some minutes for December 3rd, 2019 minutes.
My wife was 5.
Brought my hat in.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Abstain.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
2 abstentions. How was that one?
Pretty good. Abstination.
You been playing Scrabble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been playing by himself. He's winning.
Guess who beats me? Other business, Bruce.
Yeah, the other business that I have for the planning board tonight is is a discussion on your draft planning board work schedule that you have on your desks before you.
I didn't get one.
It's in the very, very back.
Oh, is it? Way in the back?
Way in the back. Now go back one.
And what I was hoping
Blind in one
tonight
eye and
was
couldn't
that
see
we
out of the
could,
other.
No, I did the same thing.
I was hoping that tonight we could decide whether we're going to do all of these things. There's 5 items. One of them is the CIP, and I will digress a bit on this one. It remains my strong recommendation that the planning board cede the authority to develop the capital improvement program and to name a committee, hopefully made up of some planning board members, to the Board of Selectmen as outlined in the statute. I'm going to remind you that it took just about 10 months this year to get through this, and it dominated almost every meeting, with the exception of a couple where there were development proposals before you. It was painful this year, and it was painful for me. I'm not saying that my involvement would not go away. I would advise any capital improvement program committee, but that construct begins with you considering a motion to do that, to cede that authority as outlined in the statute to the Board of Selectmen, and to create a capital improvements program committee.
I myself think that it should be taken away from the planning board. I mean, our plan is not capital improvement people. And you can see that our workload is really messed up from doing capital improvements.
Yeah.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I agree with Bruce. I think we should have a capital improvements committee separate from the planning board.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should too.
But we probably ought to ask the Board of Selectmen
Well, we have the authority on this one.
to dump it on them, or?
Well, what they would do is, what do we do, Bruce? We'd put this together and they would appoint, as far as,
Say that again, please.
how would this, if we were to give this to the Board of Selectmen, would it something we propose and with the number of people on the board and who we would recommend?
Well, that groundwork has already been done. I had that ready when I came to help you with the capital improvement program 5 years ago. And because the board decided then that you were going to do the capital improvements program, I amended all my documents, my policy and charge documents, to not reference a committee and committee membership and all of that stuff. So that's ready in the wings to come back. That's an easy piece. That charge and policy document would go to the Board of Selectmen for their approval, much as yours did. Yours went to them for their approval as well. So, it really isn't a big change. The only change is that you would vote to not do it and to give the authority to the Board of Selectmen to create a capital improvements program committee using a draft policy and charge document that lays out what the bylaws are. That's it.
Would that be something we could see at the next meeting?
Yeah, and I guess my point is that if you want to hold that in abeyance, we can leave the priority number one on your work plan until the next meeting.
Yep.
And you can see that I said on your work plan draft that you may decide to cede the authority to the Board of Selectmen for a CIP committee. We do have time, because we wouldn't start this task until the end of April, early May. And as you can see, I've only got that going for the time that you're supposed to do it.
Yep.
May, June, July, and August. That's supposed to be it. Not starting in April or late March and going all the way through to December.
Yeah.
If we can get beyond that, we can put that on, if the board wants, we can put that on the agenda for next time.
How does the board feel?
Yeah.
Further
Yes.
discussion and a
Larry?
possible vote.
But to jam a couple of proverbs together, as the CIP committee, the planning board has no ox in the fight. And other members of the community might have an ox that could be gored too easily by what has been so far our impartial decisions.
That's valid.
That's
And
true, that
particularly,
is true.
If speaking as a budget committee member, if budget committee becomes a substantial part of a committee created by the selectmen, then that amplifies what should be the work of the budget committee itself, rather than sitting in judgment on what it believes next year's budget should be. But the problem with direct answers for complicated questions is they're quick, painless, and frequently useless.
You know, I'll
Except for the useless
I'll
part.
help with that. You know, I advised the capital improvement program committee for 5 years in Milton Borough. And Larry's right, the committee is not without some kind of an undertone of politics at different times. But I think that happens here with the planning board as well at different times through the years too, in your taking a look at the capital improvements that come before you. So I don't see a big difference. I think that the membership makeup of a capital improvements program committee is very important and needs to be laid out with care in any draft and policy document. A good construct would be 2 planning board members, 1 budget committee member, 1 selectman, several citizens. You want to get to, you know, some odd number of members, like 7, like we have on the planning board. But the point is that you
Populate it.
you want to have a diverse mix of members that can take a look at the capital improvements projects that come before you. And I'm thinking that there is an opportunity to have more expertise in different areas, such as financing, planning, the whole gamut, that we don't necessarily get here.
Would the planning, town planner not turn toward me when he says odd member?
I'm sorry, Larry, I didn't really mean it that way.
Maybe something we,
Well, I think that, I'd like to see that next meeting, for next meeting, Bruce.
Yeah.
We can add that to the agenda, and possible, discussion and possible vote.
it's
Yep.
Because there is
calling
time.
off of the
Yep.
selectmen. Take this.
Is that, everybody agreeable with that?
Yes.
So is that a motion? You want a
No, we
motion?
just-
Oh, is that what you want?
We need a motion for that, Bruce.
I will,
For what?
It's up to you.
I will move that we do that for the next meeting.
Second that.
Thank you, Ashley.
All right.
I'm fine with that. Just thought on it. So we turn it over to the selectmen and they, with guidelines of what we think would be the membership, et cetera.
Correct.
Yes,
With-
we would
with
give
Bruce's
them a
backing.
draft policy and charge with bylaws document, just like you have now, only a little different. Which would lay out those guidelines and rules that you'd like to have, like the membership
The only
makeup.
concern I have that is it eventually getting twisted by, you know, years down the road to the good old boys club where they just stack the deck the way they see fit. Which we've seen in the past years and years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm hoping that there's diversity in it too.
Right, so I didn't know if it would be like, then they just do everything and then we look at it one day and then we submit it on to them, or just we don't have anything to do with it. You know what I mean?
Would we make a recommendation?
Go for it.
Oh, no, I mean,
Gotcha.
smarty. All right, so I'll make a recommendation. How about that?
You mean, come back to the planning board for recommendation afterwards?
Yes,
It's possible, but again, we don't wanna get involved in it because it takes up so much of our damn time when we do it.
that's true.
I mean, if we start getting in the middle of it, we
Yeah,
gain
for-
nothing.
For the last couple of years before this one, wasn't too bad,
Right.
because we didn't have anything else on the agenda. Nobody was building anything, nobody was
No
doing.
subdivisions, yep,
No, so now we're getting busy again.
yep.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. What I meant was for the draft policy and the change in diversity. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, when we get, he brings that, we'll read it and go over it and see if we know make changes we can.
Okay, good.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. You got any more comments, Bruce?
Well, not on that. I think that I just wanted to point out a couple things on the remaining 4 items that I've proposed to you in your draft work plan. The first one is to research and rework the failed Amendment 2 zoning amendment, and that was 2019, by the way, not 2018. The reason why I have it down for only May, June, and July is because I am working with a contingent of the Conservation Commission to come up with not just 1 or 2 things, but a whole rewrite of that whole fix to the zoning ordinance. So I would like to have a draft of that ready for you in May or early June to work on.
Now, is that the one that everybody decided was gonna be Disneyland at the?
Yeah, it was tagged, it was related to Mighty Joe is what it
Yeah.
was. And that was unfortunate, but there were mistakes in it that need to be fixed. The second one is the International Property Maintenance Code issue. A year ago, the Board of Selectmen gave me a mandate to begin to work on drafting up an ordinance that brought in the International Property Maintenance Code, and part of the issue is the way certain properties look and feel that detracts from villages, it detracts from our town, and it may hinder anyone wanting to come live here. It may hinder businesses coming here, and so the Board of Selectmen at that time thought that was very important to work on, and so I've added it to the work plan. I can answer questions on this, but if you think that that's a priority, we'll begin to work on that right away. The next one is one that was on your plan last year, and we didn't get to it because we couldn't. And that's to prepare the community facilities and equipment chapter of the master plan. There is one that was written in 2002. It's not very good. As a matter of fact, it was hard to find. This is going to take a lot of background work, as I said to you last year, with the department heads and the planner and others to put together the verbiage for this chapter so that it'll be useful in the development of any future capital improvement program documents. The reason why it's on there for only September and October, again, is because most of the background work will be done by others until it gets to you as a draft. And finally, what I spoke of earlier is is priority 5, and you can change these priorities too, is develop new zoning districts for zoning amendment. There is a need, and I've spoken on this before, that the zoning districts in Milton are not very well planned, and they don't make sense. A case in point is when somebody laid out the high-density residential district and decided that they only were going to go out 200 feet from the road on Elm Street because the sewer line and the water line was there. They didn't think about planning for the future, about other areas where developers could extend those water and sewer lines on their dime to get their development. Without that, the land that kind of makes sense to be in the high-density residential district is still in the low-density residential district, and it's close to the village. So some of these things don't make sense. I think that the board's hard work in this will be to pull out the map and have a discussion on what really needs to happen, and looking to the future about what you want to see, and looking at your master plan at what it already says to do. So that's a task that I put on, and there are a number of meetings that we will devote to that, 2 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, and 1 or 2 in December. So that one is one that you can talk about too. I wouldn't add any more tasks, because this is very, what's the word I'm looking for? No, it's
An aggressive plan?
there you go, that's a word I was
How's that?
thinking about. Sometimes my aphasia just overwhelms me. But this is the type of discussion I thought we'd have tonight. If you like the work plan as it is, we can, I would like to have you approve it. If you want to change it, this is the time, I think, to do it.
I'd make a motion to accept it as is.
I have a motion to accept it as is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
What about moving this one on the number 5 up? Because we're already, let's see. You have Amendment 2 that failed. Okay, why not move it up?
It'll move up if we move on number 1 anyway.
Yeah, you can move it, because we're gonna, number 1 will,
Fade away.
Shut up. That's so mean.
I think I would want to know a little bit more about the IPMC task. Before
Making any changes?
changing it, yeah.
Okay, then we're gonna make an adjustment after.
Do you
after
want to
that
hear a
meeting.
little bit more about it right now?
If it's up with the board, I mean, yes, I would like to.
fine with me. Rest of the board want to hear a little bit about it?
Sure.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I have a printout that talks a little bit about it, but the bottom line is that the International Property Maintenance Code it's a model code that regulates the minimum maintenance requirements for existing buildings, both on the inside of the building and on the outside of the building on the property. And there are, the whole code is made up of 8 chapters. A municipality does not have to enact or bring in all 8 chapters, and I certainly wouldn't recommend it. A canvassing of New Hampshire shows that there is probably 6 to 8 communities that have they've adopted all or parts of the International Property Maintenance Code. The chapters are talk about the administration of it, talk about definitions, talk about enforcement, talk about the process for enforcement, which I think is a good thing. And then after that, there are definitions. Then there's general requirements. In the general requirements section, that's the one that talks about things like, things like maybe not letting your grass or your weeds grow more than 8 inches high. It also talks about things like, you're not going to do a favor for your friends and relatives and store your boats and cars on your side lawn. I can point to it, it's right over here. You're not doing that, you're not having junk out there, you're going to take care of your junk and rubbish. And you're going to take care of the exterior of your building so that it doesn't impinge upon the safety and welfare of those around you. So there are other chapters with regard to things like light ventilation and occupancy limitations. And I won't talk about the others because I don't think that we really need them. They're fixated on the interior of buildings, which my opinion, of course, is that there has to be some lesser amount of government intrusion in your life in your own home. But that's something for you to discuss.
Rochester implemented this a couple of years ago.
That's what I was just gonna say, that's
And
right.
they had their own little kind of squad that went from building to building. And council got so many complaints, they disbanded it. And they had null and voided the property maintenance.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to that coin. I did talk with the economic
Grass
development
is too long.
coordinator in
I'm gonna tell
Rochester.
you.
That their take on it is that it's working very well. As you know, there's another side to this discussion, and that is who is going to enforce it. And do you have enough staffing, and does the staffing have enough hours? So these are things that I think have to be discussed throughout the whole process. This is an ordinance that will have to go to the voters. You know, most communities do see this as a land use code, therefore it does go through the planning board. Other communities don't, and it's gone through the Board of Selectmen on their ordinance process. But no matter where it starts, it has to go to the voters.
And if the voters pass it, then it ends up going to court. You're not gonna, no ordinance is gonna stop people from what they're gonna do unless you get them into court.
Right,
I don't
if you
care how
take
cut
this
it.
on, I will provide you with
Gun and a badge?
documentation
I need more than one, my
on how
friend.
it's working in the New Hampshire communities that have enacted it, so that you will have a clear picture. You'll also have a clear picture of what sections to put in there. You don't have to put a whole chapter in. You can actually, I'll use the word cherry pick the sections that fit the needs of this town, and not things that you don't need. So that's this is just like 4 pages out of the whole thing, but the whole thing is pretty thick,
Yeah,
like all codes.
Larry,
Residential or commercial? Commercial about what size? Commercial and residential.
Yeah, it's commercial and residential.
That,
Yeah.
rural and village compact.
The code doesn't make any reference to that.
Mhm.
My point is that
Sounds like housing
Yeah, if I
association.
wanted to live in a condo unit, I'd go
Because
to
you're
a
on the
condo
country.
unit.
and you don't
In the
pull your
Gestapo.
weeds.
You
or
will do this or we will
brush
shoot
hog your
you.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
No.
safe.
They actually tell me I can't put all my lights on the ridge.
And that was majority vote of the
Mr.
board
Chairman.
of selectmen that sent this here, not necessarily all of them, just saying.
I know.
Yeah, because they don't have to go try to enforce it.
May I, thank you, Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Economic Development Commission, could we request a dissemination of that document and the planner's comments to the full commission
Sure.
for informational purposes only? Thank you.
And I attended the committee meeting the other night, and they are on board with trying to develop this.
Yeah, I'm not, and I'd like to see.
I understand that they are.
So what year are we on for the builders
Well, from
code?
what I learned today, the state finally adopted 2015.
We were on fire there, huh?
Oh, yeah. We lit them right up. When is this, 2020? We just, I gone up to
So
2015.
we can't surpass them, right? We have to stay within the state.
Right, yeah.
So we could have tighter restraints, not.
This is why we started this whole thing with the building codes, going to the ICC, so we'd all be on the same page, then towns started adopting this and adopting that, so we're right back to where we were before.
Oh, yeah.
Larry?
I'm sure the board is interested in knowing that historically, our elderly antique capes were only painted on the side that faced the road.
I believe it.
And one of the major changes, and you can see it at the Farm Museum, is the front windows, when they got rich and famous, went to full pane bottom
Yep.
and top, and the rear stayed 6-inch glass, which was cheaper.
I second that motion.
Yeah, I've seen in some communities where they just painted the windows the same color as the side of the house. Oh, shit.
Okay, any more comments on any of Bruce's plan?
Thank you, Bruce.
So next meeting, we'll be going over the CIP stuff?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
can I clarify something for you?
Sure.
I think I really need to, we really do need to keep, we really need to do the capital improvements program in 2020. It needs to stay on your work plan, because if you decide to want to cede control of this to a capital improvements program committee, your motion would be to recommend that the governing body prepare a warrant article that goes to the voters that would make that change. That was the one thing that I didn't get right. So what I'm saying is that the governing body, the Board of Selectmen, can't just do it on their own. It has to be done by the legislative body, the voters.
Okay.
So your motion after your discussion next time would be to move to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that for next year's town meeting, a warrant be prepared that will authorize a capital improvement program committee.
I don't know, because I know we'd be impartial.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I mean,
Anything more, Bruce?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I didn't even get it out of my
Oh,
mouth
my
yet.
God.
That was quick.
I thought we were gonna talk about the Heritage Commission.
Oh, missed it again, my bad. Where'd they go? Here it is. Where the hell they have it?
Ashley,
Just
thank you
found
for
it, right?
reminding
I
us.
just found it.
Do you
Oh,
want
here
us
it
to
goes.
keep them here so
Go in
you
here.
can take them? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay.
what